Hi everybody. One thing that I forgot to share in my last video, which is sort of a trick that I had learned from some artists that I've taken classes from, is when you have a finished painting, taking a mat and really zeroing in on the areas of the painting that you love. So just putting that white mat around as a border really changes the look of your art, especially if it's on paper. The other thing you can do is if you have a really big painting on paper, you can take a smaller mat and use it almost like a window to see smaller areas of what you love. So I just wanted to show you with this mat what some of my finished paintings look like when they're in the mat. Now these paintings are fairly large, and I had some frames that I had tried them out in, but the frame didn't have much of a mat. And then I just happened to have this mat handy because I tend to paint a lot in this size. And I thought, wow, it just really makes me see the finished piece differently. I can see some of the areas that I might want to change, or some of the areas that I really love. Really putting a mat just takes it to the next level, and it is a great way to present your art and just see it differently. So, you know, having an option to have a little mat at home, you know, if you do paintings on paper, just kind of keeping, or you know, even making one yourself, almost like a little viewfinder of just moving it around and looking at the areas that you love, especially if you're stuck with a painting, because it can be really easy to see the areas that you don't love. And I just like this practice. Now, this is a painting. Some of you may slightly recognize this, excuse me, this background from the previous video I had done. It was really, really wild, and it was a painting that I just hadn't finished. And so I wanted to take that, whoops, sorry, I just bumped you guys. I am standing up right now because I do have sciatica, and so it's all about learning how to be comfortable when I do videos. Okay, so here is this painting I had just kind of, it's really far from being completed, but the composition I'm going to keep the same. I love the texture. There's just little tweaks I'm going to make to it, but just putting it with this mat over top makes me love it even more, and I kind of know where I want to go back and work on it. So these acrylic paintings where we had taken work on paper that we were wanting to redo, this is sort of part of my process when I paint with acrylic. So I'm just going to show you this little snapshot of the ones I had done last night. There's a really big snowstorm here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we were pretty much snowed in. The roads were terrible, and it was getting dark, but I just was craving doing some acrylic painting, which I don't typically do. I love watercolor, and that's usually my choice. But this is the other one that I had done. So you can see how I have bits of, this is collage paper, black and white, which I had snuck in here randomly, watercolor paper. So for those of you that have followed a lot of my videos, you know that when I was cleaning my watercolor brush, and I don't remember putting a fish on here. That's really funny. But when I cleaned off the brush, I created almost another collage sheet that, you know, I can tear off a piece of this and put it in a painting. So, you know, how to, you know, clean off your brush and make new art with those pieces. I'll just go through these a little bit quickly. This is another one I had started, and it's just about painting very abstract, getting out of my head, working with texture. As you can see up close, there's quite a bit of texture in this rose. And these are, again, paintings that would have otherwise just been waiting for me to come back to, because at the time I just kind of needed to stop, and I didn't love them, and I moved on to something else. That's just sort of how I operate in my artist practice. And I really, really love this one. I love the colors in this. So again, you can see that collage that has a bit of a pattern at the top here. I used a gloss gel medium by Liquitex, so this is why you see a little bit of a sheen on the painting. And I used to use matte gel, which has a matte effect, but this artist that I had recently taken a workshop from said, you know, if you use the gloss medium, you really pull out the vibrancy of the paints. So that's something I'm playing with. This is another one. So at the workshop I had done, at the very end, some of the ladies beside me, they're super sweet. They're like, would you like to have some of this excess paint on my palette? Because they could tell I was using it to create a new painting, and they're like, it would otherwise be thrown out, we won't use it. So I borrowed a couple palettes and I just smushed them right on here. I got that very beautiful mustard yellow. We were cleaning our brushes and had this really interesting turquoise blue background. And then I revisited this last night and I added some collage elements. I really tried hard not to overthink it, because abstract art, you can really overthink. And it was just such a great process to just turn off and let go, because I don't always have that ability to do in my practice. And it's something that I'm trying to train myself to do. So, you know, I never would have put a piece of paper with sort of this shape in here. This was where I had cut out a circle and I considered this like a scrap, but I quite like it in this painting, and I may add a little bit of gold and smudge it and just have a little bit of an interest point there when I finish this work. Now again, these are all on 140-pound watercolor paper, and so if you want to try some of these, I recommend doing your work on 140-pound paper or heavier, because it will just hold some of the, you know, watercolor or fluid art or acrylic paint and papers that you use. It's quite amazing how 140-pound paper can hold up a lot of medium. This is another one I really like, and you can see where I etched in sort of rounded shapes when I knew that the top paint was still a little bit wet. So that was just practice. If you etch in when it's too wet, you get quite a bit of smudging, but that's okay too. That can just be another interesting effect. And I wanted to zero in on this part right here, because this was, I'm just gonna bring you closer in without turning you off. I think about that every time. So funny. Well, it's not funny, but anyway, this area here I just love. So I'd love to get like a tiny little mat. I'm just trying to see if I have one. I have so much in my studio. I'm going to take a quick peek. I have, let's just see, maybe I can take, I have this cheap frame from Micheal's, and let's just take this mat out. And it's kind of an unusual shaped mat. I think it's been trending a little bit to have this kind of rounded edge look. But I like to get affordable frames because I've done custom framing in the past and it's just not worth the money. Okay, so this is an example of how I would just zero in on areas that I love. So if you have a painting and you're just not sure if you want to complete the whole thing on paper, if you're like me, I have a tendency not to, I don't tape around my edges, I don't leave a border, I just get excited and I want to fill up the whole paper. The only challenge with that is when you're trying to sell your work, if you sell it, it can be a little bit harder for the client to frame it if it's on paper, and that's sort of what they're going to do to finish the piece. But right now I'm just squinting my eyes and I'm just going to bring this closer, and I just love this area. So I really do have the option of kind of abandoning this whole painting and creating a new miniature painting in this viewfinder of sorts. Another area I like, or that has potential, is this area here. I would just maybe put like a black line work, maybe an abstract flower. I also turn my work quite often. It just gives me a new perspective. And I do love to incorporate black and white into my work. And so I just wanted to share that process with you. Let's just see if I have. Yeah, so I think that gave you an idea of just sort of how you can see your work a little bit differently on paper and not get discouraged, because if you work large, you can always cut it down, and you can even make ATCs, artist trading cards, which are 2.5 by 3.5 inches. They're quite small. I just happen to have, they're about this size. And this is just a little cat on canvas that my printer had given me as a sample. And an ATC, an artist trading card, is small enough that if you had, you know, if you look at, say, this painting and you cut it up, you have like a whole new base to work from and to create on in these little miniature paintings. So I love working on paper. I highly recommend it, especially if you're just kind of starting out and still discovering what you love. The next thing I want to do is a watercolor warm-up. So this is an art journal of sorts where I have been doing my art poetry paintings. There's no words with this particular piece. I don't always add words, but this is just an example of playful. I can see I actually didn't finish some of it, which I'm going to add the gold dots into my little E shapes that I didn't finish. I happen to have my gold Posca pen sitting here. So let's just see, are you zoomed in? You're zoomed in. And let's just, I have just too much on my desk here. So I'm gonna add my polka dots over top of this little E line work that I discovered a while ago by just practicing mark making. And now that feels a little bit more finished. And of course, I didn't think that I might smudge it when I'm showing you my journal. This is another page, and I feel like it's the opposite composition, but again, I'm just gonna add my gold dots to finish it up. I love art journaling, just the process of putting down something that's inspiring you and not overthinking it. Like right now, I almost see like a little wolf or something, and I just want to add gold paint into it without filling in the whole thing. Just adding a little bit of interest over in that area. Now this was a very, very affordable journal that I had purchased, or I guess, you know, it's not necessarily a journal, but I've made it a journal. I purchased this at Home Sense here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The only thing I don't care for about it is the paper is a little bit of a gray. So I tend to like a lot of white as my background. And if I was to put a matte on this as a finished piece, it's hard to tell here, but it has quite a gray undertone. And it just, you know, I love this piece, but I may reproduce it into print and then make the background white because, you know, the original, I just don't love that gray paper, but the piece itself, I really like. So just some examples of play works that I haven't finished. These are supposed to be this orientation. And looking back at this is a color palette I really, really love. I would consider this color palette for an acrylic painting. This was cleaning off my brush. And let's just, I probably won't create in this journal because it's so big. So I might do something smaller with you all, but this is, it's an A3, which I believe in the UK and maybe Australia, other countries, they call it an A3. This one is about 11 by 16.5 inches. So the reason this, I mean, obviously it was affordable, but it was so long. I really liked that. I wanted a bigger art journal. And I'm not sure why I'm talking about this one because I'm just going with what I feel like. But let's grab, we'll do like a little watercolor warm-up maybe. So let me see if I can find, I can't find my art journal handy. So this is actually my son's, he is 6 and he loves to do art with me. And I'm loving that because he hasn't always loved to do art with me, but he takes collage papers, and this was from about a year ago, but he'll just kind of glue them on and then we'll revisit it and we will put paint over top. So his are pretty wild, and that's okay. Oh, we got some stickers in there, but I do love this quality of paper. So I'm getting a little abstract. I love this page actually. And we were just playing with mark making, and I was saying to him how much I love this area right here and how those little spots of black just bloomed out. He's actually really getting close to, instead of just making a mess, he's sort of making his own mess, which is, he's getting better at what he's doing. Okay, so the reason I'm showing you this journal is because this is a very affordable Micheal's brand, Artist Loft. It's a heavyweight paper, but I can do anything from watercolor on it to collage. We'll see how the watercolor does today. This is 140 pounds, and I really like the large size. So what I'm going to start with is activating my watercolors. I use a lot of different brands, and that spray bottle is not great, so I'm just gonna grab a paper towel here because I got quite a bit of water up there. And I'm gonna put this little sheet aside, but maybe start another one. So this was just practice. Funny, I was thinking about painting Brighter Days Ahead, and in this little practice sheet, I had bought a dip pen, which is where you dip the pen into ink. It's a very, very fine tip, and I was hoping to get away from buying paint pens, and I wanted to make my own, but it really is something I'm trying to practice with. So I was just putting some writing on here, and this is just a great sheet to start to put the excess watercolor on that comes off my brush. So I'm going to just put that in a place where it's kind of ergonomically friendly. Just put it here, and I have my watercolors to my right. A lot of different brands. I love Beam paints. If you've been following me, I love Mozart, Komorabi, Japanese paints. That's this little set here. So Mozart, these have great neons. If you're looking for a really good palette of watercolor with neons, I do think that they're a little bit more pricey than when I first purchased them. We have some ocean paper paints from Kauai. Actually, their studio has moved from Kauai, but then next to that, I have all my Beam paints and then some kind of stragglers from other places. And I have this Around the World palette from the Ocean Paper. And so I just activate them. I love to work with a lot of different colors. And when I do videos, I'm less likely to do a lot of mixing of my own colors. I probably do end up mixing, but this is just how I paint. I'm gonna move my acrylics because my art table is surprisingly small. And so I'm just gonna do a quick warm up with you all and see if I can get my camera angle where you can see. I might just go down a little bit. And I'm gonna see if I can just zoom out but bring you down a bit. There we go. So hopefully that's okay for you all. So I'm using a round brush, and I'm using my number 12 round by Princeton. Getting it nice and wet. One more spritz of my watercolors. And immediately I know I want to paint a painting where I do an art poetry painting where I say that there are brighter days ahead, just because I am feeling that now. Just with the really cold weather and all the snow, the slippery roads, and we're hopefully nearing the end of our winter here in Calgary. But I always crave brighter days ahead. And right away I can tell I'm used to working on really high quality watercolor paper. I invest in high quality because I am selling my work and I paint a lot, and so I can just feel that this is not quite the quality that I'm used to, and that's okay. What I'm gonna do is sort of out of practice with this, but I am gonna drip down this middle part. So what I did is I chose a color that I'm craving, which is this gorgeous, joyful magenta. And this, I'm just sort of trying not to paint too much. I'm letting the water and the paint do its thing, but I can tell I want it to drip down right here. And I'm gonna point my round brush down a little bit, and where you put the water, the pigment will go. I can tell that it's probably gonna drip over here. And normally I don't control it, but I wanna just try and teach you guys if you're interested in doing a drip. It takes a lot of practice. So, and then I know when to stop it, and I kind of tilt it back. So for me, I'm really happy with that drip. Right away, I know, whoops, I just smudged on, that's okay. So if you happen to get marks, again, I'm in the process where I paint to sell my art. So this would bother me because I know, when I'm trying to sell my art, I don't want the excess marks. When you have a high quality paper, it's really easy to wet off the marks that just kind of happen that you may not want in a certain area. But this paper is not the best quality. So we'll just enjoy it, and I'm just going to turn off my mind and not think about the angle of selling my work, because that does take out the joy. It takes out the freedom, or it can take out the freedom. Okay, so to talk about what I'm doing, I'm pulling in sort of a brownish clay color, kind of a neutral, and I'm pulling down some of that magenta, and I'm moving upward. And again, with better quality paper, you'll get a lot more ability to move the paint around. It will stay wet longer. And I just sort of want to, though, walk you through my thinking process. What I'm doing is I'm putting down first a color that I love. I know that I like this composition. I like a lot of white space. And I am adding neutrals beside the brights. So my color craving, I love brights, but I know that it's more appealing to the eye and to my eye when I'm done if I add neutrals. So I'm using a gouache right now, like a gray gouache. And the reason I chose this gray gouache is because right here, this is a very transparent watercolor. And I thought I love contrast in my work. So beside it, I want to have something more opaque. So it's still watery, but the gouache, which is kind of like a hybrid of watercolor and acrylic paint. I'm losing my train of thought here. It's where you're getting contrast, which is a principle of art. So I'm really liking this so far. Immediately I'm craving orange, which I don't put in a lot of my work. I just put a little bit in. And so I'm gonna go to my Around the World palette and really go for this orange here. And I put quite a bit of water on my brush, and I'm just gonna bring it in here. And I'm trying to pull up some magenta, but it's pretty dry, so that's okay. It's just giving you an idea of my thinking process. So I have that bright orange, and what I want to do is immediately, without cleaning my brush, I'm dipping into a Ukrainian paint, which I have hidden in here. This is Coral by a company called Rosa Gallery, I believe, and it's just the one color I absolutely love. Let's just see if there's a number on it. It was $3.90 Canadian at Kensington Art Supply. And I don't see the number on it, but I do have it written down somewhere. But the color is Coral by a company called Rosa. And while this is still wet, this orange, I am putting in or dropping in that really opaque, so not transparent, bright coral. And I'm just getting a little bit of the orange, and I really, really like that. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of the color down below before adding my next color. And I'm gonna get that coral off on my sheet on the side here. And I realized that I did not give myself a lot of table space today, but that's okay. Immediately I want to pull in, trying to think of what color I want to do. I kind of want to pull in, I'm not sure how much I love that, but that's okay. Maybe I'll do a mustard kind of color, or like a yellow ochre. I'm just going to take it and bring this back up, almost as though I'm creating, like, I think of it like a garden in the sky. So this base of like a garden, I'm dropping in a little bit of yellow over here. And I'm just realizing now how much I miss my really high quality watercolor paper, but you know, it's not affordable for everybody. So this is just a great example of painting on paper that's not meant for watercolor necessarily, but it's maybe, you know, helping my practice, because when I do go to paint on the better, the higher quality, I'll feel a lot more confident from all this practice. I'm going into this really beautiful lime green at the bottom here, and I'm just deciding where I want to put it. Maybe right up here. I'm going to dip back in. I want a lot of water in that area, and I'm kind of squinting my eyes. When we squint our eyes, we just see things differently, and we see contrast, and believe it or not, I mean, it's the opposite of what you would think when you squint, but you see better. With art anyway, I see better if I squint my eyes. And I know that has to do with anatomy and the way our brain and eyes are connected. And I would not be able to explain that very well. Maybe when I worked as a nurse, I would be better. I feel like I need a refresher on all that. But I do just squint my eyes a lot, and actually the process of squinting, see now I'm actually, though, I'm not telling you guys what I'm doing because I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm adding in some dark brown, which I don't mind. I didn't know if I loved it, but just looking at this painting, I am enjoying the colors very much. I was gonna say my latest collection is called As We Cloud Our Vision, and that's because my son has had to wear an eye patch for his lazy eye, and he has to do it for 2 hours every day. And I really admire him for that, because I just know how hard it is to be that age and have to commit to something that really doesn't feel great. But he's so good about it. And I find eye patches all around the house, and I just think about how he's clouding his vision to be able to see better. He's strengthening his one eye while patching the eye that is stronger, and we want to kind of bring them together. And as I cloud my vision in my art, I actually see better. So my whole collection is about peeking through patches, because I'll catch him where he doesn't put the patch on fully, and it's super cute. And I kind of tease him about it, and then but I think about it, and I think about it when I'm painting. And so one of my paintings is called Peeking Through Patches, because I think of my collage work as patchwork and seeing the beauty of what lies underneath. And I just love that, yeah, I'm totally digressing. So I'm putting in, this is a gouache. I'm sorry I don't have the names, but I did do quite a few swatch videos on all of the paints I'm using. But I'm adding in, you can do this with like an acrylic paint, where you drop in opaque paint. Like, I'm just trying to see if I have, this would be an example. You could water down some acrylic paint. This is Titan Buff, and probably get this color, and you could actually drop this into your painting. So I could try it right now. I could just give it a little shake and take a little bit off the end here. Now this is fluid acrylic, but let's just say I want to have more, see if you guys can see me, more opacity over here. Now I put it on really chunky, but I actually really like that because it gives texture to a watercolor painting. So believe it or not, I do add acrylic paint to my watercolor paintings. And I'll just kind of get that off my brush a little bit and over here. And I'm just kind of getting my brush clean. I did a bit of a no-no, which is, if you want to keep your watercolor brushes in good quality, in good shape, you don't want to be using acrylic paint because it's plastic and it gets in the fibers. It's not ideal. So I'm just gonna muddy up my water here and get that off. And I'm also gonna show you my favorite brush cleaner. So I paid about $13 for this at the art store. It's called the Masters Brush Cleaner. It's for oil, watercolor, and acrylic, and you get your brush wet, and it reminds me of that aftershave that my dad used to use. Is it Old Spice? Or I guess any aftershave, where I just remember him scrubbing his brush into like something like this. So although this is good because it doesn't have a strong perfume smell, whereas I remember that Old Spice was pretty strong. Okay, so hopefully that will help preserve my brush. And then looking at this painting, again, my intention, usually I paint very intuitively, but I wanted to paint my style called There Are Brighter Days Ahead, because I just, again, am feeling like we all need a bit of color and joy and beauty and brightness within the world with everything that goes on. And as creatives, I think we tend to be very sensitive people. I know I am, and I paint to find that joy when I'm feeling low from what's going on in other places where I have no control. So I picked up a little bit of neon pink, which is one of my favorite colors. Now I'm talking a lot, so this is drying a fair bit, but I'm just gonna kind of, again, squint my eyes, and I just feel like I could do a little bit of this neon in here. And you can see the opaque gouache is moving into the transparency of that, but I can control it a bit. I can tilt my paper, and I've put quite a bit in here, and that's okay because I can always go over it with line work or acrylic paint or collage, put something else in there. And I can also, where's my little brush sheet? You know, watercolor, I love the look of transparency. So without moving too much of that gorgeous blooming underneath, I'm just going to add some watermarks just to the area where I did that pink and bring it up there a little bit. And see how there's that dot? I can get rid of it if I want. Immediately I'm craving like a green. So because I had used this sort of, I don't know what color this is, but I had used this color down here, this sort of olive color, I'm gonna find a slightly different hue of that by mixing something next door, like this color, maybe a little bit more of this dark green. I mix right into my watercolor palette because that's just the way I work. I don't do abstract work, and otherwise I wouldn't be able to mix. I see this running here and I'm actually okay with that. I'm just deciding, how do I want to put in this dark? Maybe I'll just put it in like that. And I'm kind of squinting my eyes, and now I want to add like almost a green transparent, a brighter green that, let's just see. We'll go to my Beam paints, and where is my Fiddlehead green? Not seeing. Oh, is this it? Oh, that's Fiddlehead green. It's got this gorgeous shimmer. So this is that indigenous, family-owned, indigenous-run, woman-owned, so Anong Beam from Manitoulin Island in Canada, and non-toxic watercolors in these cute little non-plastic packages. I'm dripping green everywhere, but I'm gonna right now try and get as much as I can on my brush. I'm gonna pull over here and go upwards, because my garden in the sky, my art poetry, I like it to kind of go in this shape. I'm gonna add a little bit over here for interest and add a little bit of shimmer. And I'm gonna let this dry, because as much as I'd love to finish it, it can be really hard to finish a painting when so if I used a hair dryer, it would probably move and it would take away all those lovely blooms. So this just gives you an idea of how I start my paintings. I feel like this is very joyful. It makes me very happy. Right now I think I'm done, but then I just see that I want to add in one of my favorite kind of aqua colors, and I like my paintings simple, but I just want to add in that beautiful aqua. I was gonna add in a light sky blue, and again, this is from sort of squinting, from practice. And so, if you're painting along with me, I just want you not to overthink what, I want you to just pick colors you love, pick a brush that feels comfortable in your hand, and try and think of it as like art therapy. It's just a piece of paper. So not worrying about what it looks like, which is something I have to remind myself of all the time. One little trick I like to do now, this area below is still quite dry, but I think of a color I want to pull in, and it might be, I'm just trying to think of what color. Often I would take a watercolor pencil and I would pull a color from here, and I'd make these kind of semicircle lines, almost like connecting the colors together. But because these areas are dry, I'm just going to use, this is a Faber-Castell. I think it's just like a pencil crayon, but I'm just going to, it's so funny. I just said the word and because my very first YouTube video, I had so many ums in my video. Like, I listened back and it was crazy, and I got so much attention from that first video. I wasn't planning on being a YouTuber. I was just planning on posting art videos for some relatives that were in a remote cottage on the East Coast. And long story short, whenever I say the word now, I'm like, because that video, I have a laugh because all of the comments were all around, you know, go to speech therapy 101, and, you know, I can't watch this video because you've said the word so many times, and like so many really positive comments, but so many quite rude, unnecessary comments. Although I have to say, I mean, it's very much helped my process. But when I get, again, in the moment, like right now with painting, and I say, for instance, the word I always stop and I have this little laugh to myself. And the reason I find it funny is because my video got so many views, not because of the content, but because of all of the people that were like writing to the kind of the haters or the trolls and saying, she did great and she was so brave for doing her video. And anyway, I don't know. I just had a bit of a laugh to myself, and I wanted to share that because, I feel like it's pretty brave to put yourself out there on video, and, some days it's a lot harder than others. And so funny because in my head, I'm like, why am I sharing this with you all right now? It's kind of, just a ramble, but it's actually getting me out of my head. And right now I'm doing this mark that I've never done because I just see that I want to add this Supercolor soft watercolor, this minty color in this area. So that's really funny. But I'm going to let this dry, and what I'll do is I'll go back with Posca pens and markers that don't do well over wet material, so I can still see that it's quite wet. But this is my Brighter Days Ahead style, and I hope that you got some inspiration from that. I have not painted watercolor in a long time, so that was really nice. And I'm just gonna move my watercolors. I have no idea how I am for time, but I did set my kitchen alarm as per usual, which I know is probably not ideal, but it's just what I do. Okay, so oops, good. I have to clean this off. This is my little watercolor palette, and I put this sticker of my art on top, and I just don't want it to stain too much green, so just give it a little wipe. And maybe this is a reminder for all of us, for you that are watching, and for me, to follow your light. So there were a lot of comments about my last video in terms of, why would you do what you're doing? Why are you painting over paintings with acrylic? And I don't exactly know what the comment was, but I just thought it was such a funny comment, and it didn't bother me because I was like, I am following my light. I am doing what makes me happy. Even if one person watches my video, I don't care if it inspires one person. That is what makes me happy. And again, there's so much heaviness in life that if something makes you happy, who cares what other people think? You just have to do what makes you happy. And if that's painting randomly over another painting on paper, you go. Okay, I'm gonna just see where I can go from here. Oh, I know. So looking at my paper size and the table size here, I had set aside a whole bunch of paintings that we can do with acrylic paint. I just need to figure out where did I put them. This is so funny. Oh, they're right beside me. Okay. It would probably be way easier if I just just focused on one medium for my videos. This is my gorgeous Stay Wet palette. I use these Stay Wet palettes when I do classes outside of my home, and it's very, very, well, it's funny, it's very handy, which is why it's called a Stay Wet handy palette. But I live in a dry place, so I have to spritz it, and you just want to make sure that it's closed, it's sealed tightly. I can see I have some paint around the edge, but it's just really great if you want to go back to, if you paint regularly, or if you need to transport paints to a class, it's just a great little way to do it. Okay, some of my favorite colors, pencil crayons here, and I'm going to switch to my acrylic brushes. So I use round brushes, number 10s, and they're Princeton. I use one flat, one angled to have handy, and then a bunch of rounds. And sometimes I use this little holder just to kind of keep my brushes standing up, not falling everywhere. And I just want to talk to you about some of these paintings. So when I first started painting and I knew I wanted to, I discovered that I loved painting, I took a class where I did 100 works on paper, which were fairly small. Well, we're advised to do fairly small, but I chose to do, I think these are 9 by 12 inches. And so I just explored whatever I could on a bunch of paper. A lot of the pieces I finished, and I was able to sell some of them. And it was when I had first started painting. And so I have left a whole bunch of paintings that were just like, this is handmade watercolor spray inks from those Wilton food gels. And I was starting a painting and I just didn't come back to it. This is a painting that I had done in 2020. I'm gonna go back to this one today because it has so much potential, because we're gonna be painting right over it. Another one, I was just practicing, I think this was when I was practicing Betty Krause's style. I was just looking to see if I have her book handy, which is called Fields of Flowers, and she's one of my favorite acrylic painters. Okay, I don't see it handy, but if you look up Betty Krause art, she does awesome classes where she paints these abstract fields of flowers, and she does very similar. She starts her paintings in a similar way that I'm going to show you, and that some other artists do. So if you just grab any kind of paper that's about 140 pounds and up, whether it's old paintings or if it's a new blank page, that's okay too. So let's just say, this is my jelly printing practice. I have toned papers, which I was just playing around on. And some of these would be great paintings, but I abandoned them because I was just not confident in how to finish them. So let's just paint over some of these today. And what I can do is I like to do multiples at a time. There's just so many backgrounds. Cleaning my brush. I'm looking for some similar ones just to show you. Where's that black one with all that acrylic? Okay, we'll just grab a bunch of them. Okay, and you've got to work fairly fast. I work really fast just to get out of my head. So let's start with, I imagine a lot of you will start with a mostly white page. So if you like, I can just turn this one over and I can paint on this side. So 140-pound paper, you need a spray bottle handy, you need some acrylic paints, paper towel, and if you have this was a tag from some flowers I had gotten, and so I was using it to put on gloss gel. I plan to do collage today, probably with you, but I just want to show you how I essentially break a blank page. So you're staring at this white page, or you're staring at something that you've done that you don't like and you just want to revamp, or just play, just practice. And so I'm going to show you my style in how I do that and how I get out of my head. These are Stabilo Woodies. They are wax, water-soluble, non-toxic. They're like a chunky crayon made with sustainable wood, and they are amazing. So they're water-soluble. If you get water on them, they activate. I won't get into all these qualities, but my son and I love these. These are great for kids with dexterity issues. They're great for adults like me if I'm if I have a bit of a tremor, you get so much color down on your page. Now, I have a tendency to do my work on the right hand side, so I'm gonna vary it up just to challenge myself today. But what I do is I just scribble. I get color onto the page because this is gonna peek through the underlayers, most likely. Sometimes it's hard to leave those awesome underlayers, but I'm just gonna put black on here. And I know that when I go over top with a watered down acrylic paint, it will move. So I know that if whatever color I put down, I may get black mixed in with that color. But I know that going in, and that's one way of just staying out of my head and going with just play. The next color is a color I'm craving. It's this gorgeous turquoise. I do love this. Today I feel like I'm kind of loving this minty green, which was that same green that I was using on the art poetry painting I just did. And I'm just getting colors down. You know, you can do circles, you can do words, whatever you want. I might just write the word play. I don't use a lot of this magenta purple. You can just do scribbles, whatever. It's just getting out of your head. So if you don't have water soluble crayons, you can use anything. You can use a pencil just to get down an underlayer. You can use a ballpoint pen, a Sharpie, whatever materials your kids might have laying around. I love these Neocolor Caran d'Ache crayons. This is a water soluble yellow one. So you can get water soluble and non-water soluble. So one moves and one doesn't, and I won't get into a ton of that today. But you've got this background. Now, what are you going to do with it? So it's just art for me. Acrylic painting is all about layering. So when I'm looking at this, I am really actually loving that yellow color. So I have this very affordable Daler Rowney acrylic paint, and it's that same color. And you know, instead of putting it on my palette, which I should be doing, I put it right on my painting. I'm not used to painting with a palette actually, so this is good practice. I'm just gonna be fairly generous and put it on, and then I'm gonna take, this is a fairly small painting. I'm gonna wet my brush, and I'm just gonna kind of gently go over top, and I see that I'm not enjoying the black mixing with that color. So I'm just gonna put it down here, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I am loving that. I am loving that color without the black mixed in. So I know that I can change this up and go back to it. So what I might do is, normally I would just kind of leave it there. You can see I'm just kind of moving the color around, and I'm just gonna clean off my brush. I might just leave it there, or I could mix in, say, a darker color just to kind of get rid of that. One of my favorite darker colors is actually Payne's Gray. It's like this dark blue, and I think I'm just going to experiment and see what happens when I put that blue. I was quite generous with it. I'm just going to actually blend it with my palette knife. And that's really actually quite interesting. Like, oh, very interesting. So I was getting a little nervous because I'm being filmed and I'm trying to be chill because I paint in a very relaxed fashion, but when you're filming, it's like a different story. But I am so happy with that. And so instead of a palette knife, you could have done what I did, which is take an old credit card, and you're revealing the layers underneath. You know, this is gorgeous. I'm really, really happy with that. And obviously it's not done. I want to do a little bit of etching, which is kind of carving in and getting some color to reveal through. Right now there's just not enough going on the underlayer to kind of get that effect. But because everything is so dark, I'm immediately craving white. So I'm gonna get my Artist Loft, very affordable titanium white, and I'm just gonna be brave and put on quite a bit. Now, I like to use a brayer, like a rolling pin for art. If you don't have that, you can just smooth the paint around with your paintbrush, or again with like your old gift card. You can get some really cool effects. Look how chunky that is just with a gift card. And right now you're like, okay, this is like, it's creating a huge mess. Like, what is this going to be? And the whole point of this practice is that it's all about the process. It's all about the journey and not the destination, not the final piece. So right now it doesn't matter whether you like this or not. What matters is that you're enjoying what you're doing. You're enjoying feeling what it's like to put paint down, and you're playing, you're turning your mind off, and you're just, so with that brayer, check out that texture that I got. And so I don't necessarily want to cover that up when I get to my final stages of finishing the painting. And I want you to remember, if you're just sort of starting out, or say you're kind of new to acrylic painting, not to put pressure on yourself to finish these pieces right away. Set them aside when they're dry, and then only go back to them if you have an idea or if you love a certain part of them. Like I said, you can cut it up, you can use them as collage, you can use them as artist trading cards, or, just not to put the pressure on yourself for it to be a masterpiece. I was taking a class by an artist, I think it was Tracy Verdugo, with inks, and I found an elephant, different stuff, but I'm loving the black background, but I'm not happy with the painting. It's just not my style. So I'm cleaning off my brayer now, and I'm lightening up the painting. So I'm gonna set this aside. This is, again, not putting paint on a paper towel or down the drain. I'm cleaning off that, and I leave my brayer like that. So I'll just set this aside and come back to this. And you can again change it, look at it different ways, but all I am doing is responding to what I have done, and I'm adding a layer on top of it. I'm looking at areas that I love and maybe I don't want to cover up. So for me, I am really loving what happened here. These are not colors I typically use in my work, but I could see them working. I love this area down below. And so, I mean, some people would look at this and just think it's a big mess, which it is, but it's like gonna become this beautiful, like layered work that has what I would call history. So there is history to this. You will remember painting this. You'll remember what you were thinking. You'll remember the times of joy when you put a color down and you're like, oh, I love that color. Like right now, just what would make me happy is adding just this magenta in here, because that just makes my brain light up. And I don't care if it doesn't seem to fit right now, but I know that I just want to put some chunky magenta on here, and I don't want it to mix with the black, so I'm kind of avoiding that, and I'm just putting it in different areas. So again, I have something to respond to. So when I revisit this painting at a later date, no matter how I revisit it, whether it's cutting it up or, or turning it into something beautiful that I love, it's giving you something to work with. So right now I want to show you how I incorporate collage pieces. In one of my recent videos, I had done collage on used papers that I made from just a paper bag and mark making. So I think I'll probably add those in. I really like the look of the brown paper bag. Now this painting's quite wet, so I'm taking a little bit of a risk right now with adding in collage, but I'm gonna do it in certain areas. So I'm gonna wet the back of the paper, which was a trick I learned at my recent workshop with Nadine Johnson. And I'm going to get I'm just going to get my old kind of gift card and put glue on the back without getting too much on my hands. I get pretty messy. I actually found glue in my hair last night before I went to bed, and I had to try and get it out. It was not easy. I'm not really overthinking this. I'm just going to put it down in this area here, and I'm going to go over top with the gloss gel as well as I smooth it down. And I know that I'll get white paint on it, but we did pretty well there. So you can do collage when your painting has dried as the next layer, but because I'm filming, I know a lot of you have said you really, really want to see finished pieces. So that's my goal. And although that's not really how I work, I tend to work in stages. I do a ton of backgrounds, say in one day, and then the next day I'll come back and revisit it. And that's because I'm just a really busy mom. You know, whether you have kids or not, or whether you're working or not, I know life is just so busy right now. And so art is something that I only do if it fits in with my lifestyle. You know, but I think of art as my life because I love it so much. I cannot be without it. But the only way I can do it and fit it in is by, again, just little bits at a time. So for me, a finished painting, you know, it may not take that long, but it's taken years and years and years of getting to the place where I can do it fast and I can work on multiples and I can, you know, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but we have some collage in here. It's sort of drying. I'm going to set this one aside and start another one. And let's just start with this one. I'm going to clean off my brush right away, just because. And I'm going to do some collage on here. So just looking at these papers, I already have a lot of black and white in there. Maybe I'll use this watercolor paper, just put it in here somewhere. So I'm going to spritz the back of this paper. It feels like this is 140-pound paper, so I need a fair bit of matte gel on the back. And I'm going to put it right over here. And because I used watercolor in this collage paper, I was cleaning off my brush, so that's how I achieved this look. I am going to try not to smudge it too much because the matte gel will move it a bit, but that's okay. I'll just put a little bit on my finger and just try and get it down without smudging it too much. And I'm totally making a mess with my hands, but that's okay. I don't think, oh, overboard. I'm just gonna push this down with my brayer. Okay, so I'm not at my smoothest today, but I'll give myself grace, which is what one of the comments was from my last video, which was so meaningful to me. So thank you to that person. It's just about how we have to be easier on ourselves, less judgmental, you know, patient with other people, because we're all just really ultimately doing the best that we can with what we have going on in our world. Okay, so I'm gonna finish with just deciding, I kind of like that orientation maybe. What I'm gonna do is, I have a whole bunch of color here, just deciding what, no, maybe I will do this way. I'm gonna add white, and I'm gonna just let some of the areas I love peek through, because if you want to see a more finished piece, that's probably the best way that we're gonna get there. I love this green, so I'm gonna add a little bit more green in, and I'm already really not wanting to cover up that area that I just scribbled into. I find it very beautiful. I also love this coral color. This is not a water-soluble crayon, but I really like it. Love that color. So I'm just kind of making a mess, and I'm giving myself options to work with. So I'm gonna take my slightly larger flat brush. I'm gonna wet it and just dry it off a little bit. And just make sure that I'm in a comfortable position here. And I'm gonna go right into the white, and I'm gonna squint my eyes when I do this. And I'm gonna cover up the areas that are just, I'm not enjoying. So I'm just gonna leave some color, and just gonna, and again, we can always come back. Oh, I forgot I signed it, 2020. No longer my 2020 signature. I'm gonna just cover that up. Only you know what's underneath your paintings. Okay, and again, I'm not too fan of that yellow and that green. And I'm squinting, and if you're covering stuff up that you're like, you can always try and add it back in. So, you know, nothing is permanent. You can take a picture before you start covering things up, and you can look at your progress and just be like, oh, you know, I wish I maybe hadn't covered this up, but is there any way I can kind of bring it back into my work? And I'm gonna need more white. Just gonna put it right on here. I use a lot of paint. And I'm just gonna go over some of this collaged area. I'd love to know what you all are thinking right now, because I still don't know what this is gonna look like. I'm just going with my process that I have kind of, you know, I've taken a lot of online classes. I've only taken actually one in-person art class ever, which was last weekend with Nadine Johnson Art from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And it was so wonderful to be in a studio, because I wasn't as worried about, you know, getting art on my blinds. And because I have a little studio room in my house, which I'm in now, but it's really, really small. It feels like it's like working in a closet, which is my own doing, because it's busy. Oh, water bottle overboard. Okay, so I'm just gonna check. I should plug in my phone just in case. So bear with me. Okay. So here we are with like a really interesting painting that has so much going on. And I really love how the energy, you know, those black marks are going this way. I feel like I could actually add more of like black and white collage in here. I really like the colors peeking through and the chunkiness of the acrylic paint. And all I did really was go over something, respond to something. And it was pretty much all titanium white paint. You can take the end of your palette knife and scrape in. You can take the end of your pen. I have, where is it? I'll just use this because this is probably what you'll be using. I have a lot of energy going that way. I might do just some etching in, like line work. I kind of like those rounded lines because I know underneath a lot of them are up and down. You know, I'm trying to find the way of moving the energy to the opposite way that it was in the original painting. And I'm giving myself more to respond to. So I am kind of like, I can always cover things up, but like scraping away some of that paint that was underneath, providing, say, texture, and just deciding, you know, what areas do I like. Now, what I'm going to do is cover up the areas that I don't enjoy as much. I might bring in a new color, but to keep things simple, I'll just do a bit more white. And I just feel like I don't enjoy this red up here as much. I like breathing room in my art. I love blank space, especially my watercolor paintings. And I'm trying to achieve more blank space in my acrylic paintings. So this is helping me practice with you all. And again, I'm just moving around kind of like white out. I'm getting rid of the areas that I'm like, okay, if I don't love, you know, all that green and black, I'm just gonna block it out. I apologize if there's a bit of noise in the background. I have some family members that have just come home. But what we would do if, like, really, I feel like I'm getting so close to finishing this piece. And what I would recommend is just deciding, again, like, this is so abstract, but it has so much going on. There's so much to respond to. What I'll do is when it dries, I'm going to do polka dots in some of the black. I am going to add more of those black marks, maybe more color down here. Hi, honey, I'm just doing a video.
Hello.
Are you okay? So I'm going to add in, I'm just going to cover the door. I'm just going to close this. I'll be off shortly, okay? So I think I told you guys that my husband was, oh, actually my son's home too. That's cute. Okay, so I'm going to finish up pretty soon. But I just wanted to show you, I've used a lot of white, but I want you to add in some of your favorite colors. Do you mind turning off the timer? I'm just recording the timer. Yeah. Okay, so it is gonna get loud. And we did really well though. I think I've been on here for at least an hour. And all I want to show you now is how to add in some colors that you love. So, you know, we're close to finishing this piece. And if you're not feeling like it's close for your style, go over with more collage papers, add in more of your favorite colors. So for me, I am loving peaches, pinks. I'm just gonna add in maybe a little bit of, you know, pink in certain areas and deciding, you know, do I enjoy that, and not trying to really make it anything. A little bit of pink maybe up there, and maybe over here and there. I'm probably trying to make it into a flower right now because it's more forced, but I'm just gonna break through and move that along. Maybe adding a little bit of that pink and white down there just for interest, and trying to decide. I feel like I could add in maybe some greens and maybe a little bit of water. And I'm gonna go into one of my favorite greens, this green gold. And I'm just gonna put that down here. I actually really like that. I don't want a ton of it in here, but I'm just gonna kind of move it around, and it gives me something to respond to. I'm then going to pick up this other kind of shade of green and squint my eyes and decide, am I liking it? Maybe mixing it in with some of that green gold. And I vary the brushes I use, the size, the shape, because then again, you kind of get out of your head again, right? So squinting my eyes, do I have my favorite colors in here? I love actually that orangey color, so I'm just gonna dip right into that on my palette, maybe lighten it up with a bit of white. And I'm repeating something I love, so I love that peeking through. Maybe I could do it like more right here. And I actually missed that black, so I'll go like that. There are some wonderful tricks to, you know, if you've covered something up, I have some really fun tricks to share with you at some point in time on how to bring back something that you love. And I feel like maybe a little bit of turquoise. I'm just trying to find a color. So what color is this? That's more of a neutral. I actually like that neutral. I'm just gonna put that up here. I'm cleaning off my brush a bit because I can always cover things up. I really want to add bronze, and I'm just not sure if I have bronze nearby me. Let me see. Okay, I'll give you all a moment while I look for my bronze. Okay, I don't quite have the bronze that I wanted, but I have, the bronze is probably best to be on here while everything is dry. Whoops, ooh, some bronze confetti. Actually, that's kind of cool. Do you see that? That dried bronze paint. We're gonna just leave that in there. And I'm gonna bring out a little bit of the bronze in this watercolor paper up here because I know it won't mix with the white acrylic paint. So I'm gonna use my watercolor brush, and I'm just going to, let's see, are you guys zoomed in or out? Okay, so I added that bronze up there, and I'm just gonna kind of move it around gently without losing the beautiful metallic. And I'm gonna just maybe drip. I really like that. And if I did too many drips, I can go back and white it out. So think of your white paint as white out, especially if you like my style. Okay, so I like really am loving this right now. And I feel like there's so much to work with. There's so much I really like. Maybe I'll just dial back the busyness, the greens in some of the areas. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of this white acrylic paint before I sign off. So I'm just gonna go back to like making that resting space over here where, you know, you can still see some of that pink coming through at the bottom here. And I'm just gonna make a little bit more white over here, just blending. Again, squinting my eyes, really taking in what areas am I loving. And I feel like I need more white over here, maybe a little white here without overthinking. So here I picked up a little bronze from the drips, and that's okay. That doesn't matter. I mean, it just creates more interest in the painting. So already, you know, if you think about today, this particular background, oh, I forgot about the other one. That's so funny. I should go back to this one soon. Okay, but this gives you an idea of a starting point where you will be the only one that knows if you choose to complete a painting. Nobody ever finishes a painting. You make a choice as to whether or not you are in love with the painting. So don't paint because you know the style is gonna sell. Don't paint if it feels like you don't love the process. You know, really be mindful when you're painting. How are you feeling? How is your body feeling? Are you tense? Are you feeling joyful, re-energized? Are you excited? And if you lose some of that, if you're frustrated, you know, it's probably because you're really wanting it to be a finished piece, you know, now. And you need to just zero back in on remembering the importance of the journey, and that absolutely it will come. It's all about, for me, I paint every single day, pretty much, if I can, you know, even if it's 10 minutes, you know, I'm so excited. Like this evening, you know, when I'm tired, I'll probably look at this and I'll be like, I just love these black marks and these etched in lines with the pink underneath. And I know that I love polka dots in my mark making. So like tonight I will go back in with Posca pen, which I'm just seeing if I have here. Yes, where is it? Okay, I don't see the white Posca, but like as an example, like when I squint my eyes, I just want this area to have more black peeking through. So I'm going to take my paint pen, because not touching the white paint, that ruins the pen. But I'm just going to push down on the nib. If it comes out in a blob, that's okay. And I'm just going to darken it. And then maybe darkening some of this area up here. I can even smudge it with my finger to look like it was less intentional. So smudging it out, you can see those. I love that smudged look. I love how this one looks like it's going that way, and these are going upwards. I might make one of them like a really bold, bright color, like a neon. So again, this is just my style, but like, let's just see. I'm not really loving those little floral drawings I have in there, so, you know, I can always draw them back in. This paint pen has had better days, so, you know, I think it's running out anyways, but I just didn't want that to look like, you know, maybe I'll have a little bit of that daisy peeking through that I had done, but I just don't want like it to scream like perfect daisy illustration underneath. I want this to be like abstract. I can see that I feel like this paint, like it's really, really chunky. I feel like it's a little bit too chunky, and I'm just gonna change it up with my palette knife, and I'm just gonna move that around. And I do miss some of the watercolor paper in here, so I can always go back to that, right? Oh, I said again. That's so funny. I think when I get excited and in the zone, I just kind of, it's just, instead of appreciating the silence, I feel the need to fill the silence, which is something I'm working on. So if you're painting along beside me, I hope you're feeling inspired and not just frustrated. You know, I feel like sometimes when I'm tired, I paint better actually. You know, and just maybe being mindful of that. I grabbed my favorite coral color and I'm just kind of adding it in different places. And maybe I added in too much, but again, I'm just responding to what's on here. And as I had said before, so one color I really love is fluorescent red mixed with white. So if I was just to take a tiny bit of this and mix it, you get this beautiful, beautiful light pink. And actually, I think it's been mixed too closely to this magenta. Let me see. Yeah, I don't want to put that in the painting. I'm just gonna use a different brush, and I'm just gonna try that again. So I'm gonna add in some white over here, and I'm gonna add a little bit of water on my brush. I'm gonna pick up some of this neon, this fluorescent color, and mix it in here. So fluorescent red mixed with white is like this beautiful bright pink. And you know, I was gonna make one of these blacks like a bright neon. I still might do that, but now I just want to add in this gorgeous pink. And for some reason, it wasn't quite what I was looking for, but I think it's because the green is still wet underneath. So again, this is just maybe feeling a little pressured, because I know some of you have asked, can I do a painting where I finish the whole thing on video? You can see I added some pink down in that corner just to move the eye around, and I do love that pink. I can always go over it later. I feel like this area here, maybe I want to do some etching. So I have these black marks coming down this way. I have the lines this way. Maybe I want to do some line work like this way. And actually I am quite happy with that. I'm gonna do another one, and I'm bringing in some of the beautiful, beautiful colors underneath from that watercolor paper. And that green, I really like that. And maybe just doing a little bit of line work over here. I might just use like a water soluble pencil crayon, maybe this mustardy color, and just kind of, okay, so that was really wet, so it's more etching versus getting the water soluble crayon in there, but I'm okay. I like that. And I know I want to add some gray pencil crayon in here when things are dry, so I'll probably try and go in with this gray pencil crayon. But this would be an almost finished painting for me, and then I would put my own flair on it. I would do the white polka dots and the black marks. I would add maybe a bright focal point. I might turn something into an abstract flower, add more collage, but in general, I'm pretty happy with this. And my hands are so full of paint, but let's just see if I can grab that mat. This is scary. Oh yeah, this mat, I thought it was smaller, you know, but okay, I'll finish the video there, but that just gives you an idea of how I would do an abstract painting. And you know, I'll really need to take a peek off video, because I know for myself, when I have gotten to this stage of like, oh, there's so much to work with, I'm really, well, you know, let's just see. What I do is I put it up in a place I can see it. So I'll put it on our fireplace. So if we're watching TV at night, which is how we like to wind down, I'll put it on my fireplace, and I just will look at it, and I'll just think, okay, what am I enjoying about it? How am I seeing it from a distance, which is so different than seeing it up close. And that really helps me with, you know, the next day I'll come back to it with fresh eyes and I'll revisit it. You can see, because some of that white paint has dried, I'm able to do more with this. I'm gonna add maybe a little bit of my greens in here. So I'm not overthinking anything I'm doing. I'm just picking colors I love, adding acrylic paint in different areas. I am probably thinking of the principles of art in my head, which I know is something that's hard to explain. Immediately, I want to add white now. So, you know, at this point, if you want to etch in with a pencil crayon, you can do that. You know, I respond to energy in my work, so let's just, let me just think. This has quite a bit of turquoise, so I'm going to clean my brush. Just take another collage paper, and that's actually really pretty, isn't it? So this is how I create new paintings, is I just clean off the brush as best I can. And already I'm like, oh, this is really beautiful. I was practicing stenciling, and now maybe this is going to be a new background, a new painting. Okay, so brush is clean. I'm going to switch back over to this painting, and I'm going to squint my eyes. I'm going to definitely add in some pinks after I do my white. And I want to also tell you, so I know it's tricky because you probably can't quite see the whole painting when I'm working, which I am super apologetic for. But the whole point of my videos is just to provide you with like a launch pad for your own art. like figuring out what do you love in your own art that you think would work for you. So I am covering up quite a bit. Maybe the reds in here are becoming like tulips in the background of a gorgeous garden. I'm trying not to cover up all the things that I love. I'm kind of like really gently skimming my brush over some of these areas that I just painted so I don't pick up a ton of the turquoise. Covering up that yellow. And see, I picked up some black from the water-soluble crayon down here. But that's okay because I like that gray. It actually works in this painting. And it's telling my creative side, hey, maybe I want to add more gray into my work now. And this has a bit too much green down here. Do a little bit more white, almost as though those tulips peeking through are intentional. Okay, definitely needs more white still, but say I was getting closer to finishing this, I would add in my favorite pink, maybe a little bit over here, and just decide, do I like that? I'm kind of making a flower, an abstract flower. Maybe adding a little bit of that over here, because you can always change your mind. You can always go back over it. And maybe a little bit down here. I don't know how much I love that. Maybe I want to be bold and add in some of this like neon. Just on that, oops, that one side. And I don't want that neon up here. And actually, I like that neon. I add maybe I want to add in more of that yellow with the neon over there. And maybe a little bit down here. So this painting is really coming together well. And again, what I'm going to do is go back to it, maybe add some more white after it dries. I might do, maybe bring out some of this area with line work. So let's just say, you know, maybe finding like an abstract flower down here and maybe like a leaf in here going up here, and maybe just adding in with a water soluble crayon some marks to go back to. I don't know how much I like that, so it's just about play and not being judgmental. So I know that I'm not really a fan of what I just did. I'm going to add in maybe more of that orange down there over the line, and I like that better now. I took out some of the line. Maybe I'll add in a little bit more of the orange over here. I'm not sure if I like that. I'm going to go back to my white, because I think my white becomes like a safety blanket of sorts. So down here, I'm gonna add in just maybe, oh, and the white had pink on it, which is okay. So still, I'm not loving it, but I don't dislike it. I'm just gonna get my white from here. And again, you need to remember at this point, you still have collage under your belt, right? You still have the option to do collage. I like that. That's more like a little tulip to me. I wanna, and okay, no, that's trying too hard again. Trying too hard to be a tulip. So we'll just kind of take that out. Okay, I like that better. It's like a subtle, abstract, botanical that it's up to the eye of the beholder. Okay, so again, going back over this and making it just more white. I'm not enjoying it a lot. Okay, I like that better now. And this one, oh shoot, got that pink on there again. That's okay. I've probably been painting a bit too long today, but I really want to do a video where you can kind of see me follow through a little bit more with this process. Now this is just how I paint. It's going to be very different than your approach and probably what you love in art. Like you may just see this and think of it as a total mess, and you may appreciate realism. And I am going to, again, more white over here. But this, like, painting right now this way is really training yourself to decide what are you loving, what are you not as keen on. I'm covering up quite a bit here, and that's okay. Because I can always go back over with a pencil, right? Like, if this is just going back to, like, it's just giving me, again, so much to respond to. I just realized this is such a long video. My husband's funny. He's like, it's probably best you don't go too far over an hour just because of downloading the video and space. But just like painting, I totally lose track of what I'm doing. When I'm painting, I'm just so in the zone. I just don't even think about anything else other than bringing joy for myself to life on paper. So getting that hit of dopamine. Okay, so here we go. Totally new painting. You wouldn't even know what's underneath. And maybe I'll just take my what do you call it, this device, to kind of etch in my, and so I'm liking a lot of that, but want to make it more subtle. Oops, and I covered something up down here, which I might just see if I can bring back a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, so already I am loving this piece more. I'll see if I can zoom out. And my apologies again that you couldn't really see the whole thing, but it changes so fast. And again, I want you to just, even if you need to just put this video on in the background when you're working on something totally different, maybe you're not ready to go to this very abstract, wild style yet. When I'm just trying to decide what I would do now is I almost want to like find, I like that, how I etched in here, and I might just want to kind of connect this area here without totally making it look like I'm trying to connect it or outline it. Okay, so there we're revealing more layers underneath by just etching in with a pencil or a water-soluble crayon. Because it's really wet, it's like it doesn't matter what color you etch in with, because this won't put the gray on the page. If this was dry, you could add in a colorful crayon to do your mark making, and that would come through. So this is where I would leave off. It's super wet, and yeah, I'm hoping this video saved, and I'm hoping I've inspired you in some way. And I am just so grateful for you all, for this community and all of your love and support. I feel so lucky, and thank you so much. Okay, we'll be in touch.